Thank you very much for the introduction. And I just want to say it's a real pleasure and an honor to be here, part of this conference. And, we live in difficult times. We have the pandemic that is surging through everybody's lives, creating a lot of difficulty for many. And the world of work has become quite different than what we're used to. And a lot of people are struggling to understand where they fit into this or what employers are looking for in terms of skills. And have the skills changed? Are employers' ideas different? What can we do to attract attention to ourselves, whether through our cover letter, our email, our interviews, the work we're doing inside a company already to catch the eye of management to maybe move our career forward. So there's a lot of challenges. And so I think we need to step back and look at where we are today and look at the whole landscape and figure out, okay, how do we navigate this? How do we make the most of it? How do we benefit from it? How do we help organizations become even stronger? There's a lot of news out there where people are quitting their jobs, a lot of them. In fact, a lot of people have quit jobs where they only met their team on Zoom. They've never even met them face to face. People are feeling that their mental health is weighing on them significantly, and they're taking breaks from their careers. And we're seeing a lot of that. And it's true, a lot of people are going through tremendous hardships, losing family members, illnesses around us, restrictions that have made us feel or lose connection to people we love and who we'd spend time with. Looking on the horizon, it looks like things are getting better and better, and I hope everybody stays well and takes good care of their health. So what are employers looking for? Well, I'll start by saying this. If you're a manager or you're stepping into a managerial role, you are not immune to the stresses everyone is feeling. There's a lot more pressure on managers these days. Luckily, organizations are training their managers more and more. There's LinkedIn courses that companies are encouraging their managers to take, so they're better at their jobs. But I do want to say this before we talk about you as an individual contributor in terms of what you can bring to your role. And you have to be somewhat empathetic of the position managers are in. And traditionally, managers are trained to sit down with people, work through challenges they have. But with things moving so quickly, and the new term out there is how well people can pivot, how people can adapt to these changes. And it's not easy. When it comes to change, we're not always the best at it. And with these constant changes in the workplace, from going home, working from home, coming back, for those people that didn't have the option to work from home, dealing with all the special safety precautions that they're working with, people with feeling a lot more stress, and so there's a lot more maybe conflict in the workplace that wasn't there before. So what can we do? What can we do to prepare ourselves for this new world of work that's all around us? And I think we've always talked about the importance of resiliency, the importance of being able to give yourself that self-care, put yourself in a good frame of mind, and really roll with things the best you can. That's always been there, resiliency, and there's always been talks on it and books on it. But it really does take a special emphasis these days, because it's more than just reading up on it, taking a course. You really have to put yourself into your space and make the best of it, because it is constant change. And since technology has entered our lives a few decades ago, I think we've all seen fast shifts constantly. If you're in a company, there's always a new computer program. There's always a new software. There's always a new process. So we're used to that. But these days, it's gotten faster and faster, and we need to upgrade our skills, and we constantly. Companies are always looking for people that are lifelong learners, but now they're looking for people that are strategic lifetime learners. So we have a whole new world that post-secondaries are starting to get into, and it's this concept of not micromanaging, sorry, micro-credentials. And micro-credentials are small little sessions you take that give you a credential at the end. Now, before, these kind of courses where you take a course, you can put it on your resume, but it looks like you just took a 2-day course. There's no real evaluation to it in the past. You know, you'd take the course, you would tell your employer, hey, I took this course, and they're like, oh, that's great. But with micro credentials, it's kept track of much more carefully. So you have an actual, there's a testing component to it. There's objectives to it, and you get a grade with it, and you get an actual micro certificate. And so those are a little bit more valuable because they show not only have you taken it, but you've mastered these skills. You've actually demonstrated that you've mastered these skills. So these micro credentials are blooming in a lot of post-secondaries, places like in Edmonton if you're in NAIT, in Calgary if you're near SAIT. And these micro credentials can be things like in Microsoft Office Suite, Excel, they could be credentials there. Micro credentials in terms of using different presentation softwares. There's all kinds out there. There's also great, soft skill programs like a customer training. So it's not enough to just, in the past, you took a customer service course for a couple of days and it was like, oh, great. You got that. But now these small micro credentials have objectives. By the end of this session, you will have had to have demonstrated and been tested on some of these components. So micro credentials are a great way. They're short courses and they build your resume. They not only show that you're an active participant in your own development as an employee, but you're serious about it, and you are serious about that lifetime learning, but you're also serious about demonstrating proven skills that you've developed and have been assessed on. So take a look at local colleges and universities for different courses that you can take to enhance that resume, to enhance your skills. Because the big thing these days that employers are looking for are people that are agile, are able to switch gears suddenly, can adapt, can identify a skill set that they need to have in a new kind of changed environment. They want to know that you're adaptable. They want to know that you're dependable and reliable, and these are the kind of skills people are looking for. That, and it all boils down to that independent self-monitoring of your own confidence, your own abilities, able to become or keep positive in difficult circumstances. And in the old world of work, managers always said, we like people that bring solutions, not problems. And that's especially the case now, especially when you have managers that are having challenging situations themselves. It really is incredible to have an employee that says, you know what, this is a challenge that we're having, but this is something I think we could do. This is something I've worked on. This is something I've been trained on. And I think this solution would be quite helpful to where we're at. So they're looking for employees that not only present challenges, but bring solutions with it. So that positive aspect to how they look at work. So I think it's really important that you reflect these new skills. Well, not really new, but you got to emphasize them. In the past, we looked at, teamwork is always essential. And now it's taken on a little bit of a new form given these virtual teams. So, I think it's important when you're developing your resume, when you're showcasing your skill set, you should emphasize, in those points, how you have demonstrated a reliable and adaptable skill set. Describe, this particular project moved online and required a lot of people from different areas contributing. Deadlines shifted constantly, but I was able to keep on focus. And, that's a little story you might save for an interview. So resumes need to show those micro-credentialing pieces need to show evidence of your reliability. And we see people that are shifting jobs a little bit, 2 years. 2 years is okay in a position. There's, if you shift after 2 years, and that should always be kind of a focus. If you have a lot of shifts in your career, in your resume, like a half a year here, 7 months there, a year there, that paints a picture to an employer. Now, oddly enough, perhaps 5 years ago, I don't think people would pay too much attention to that. Okay, you were trying to find your way, you were moving along, but now employers are starting to think we need people that can stick with something. And so, try to make the best out of situations you're in. Like if you're really not happy with your position and you really feel like there's some challenges there, you can think about making a move. But I really recommend for all of you out there, try to stay the course in a position for 2 years. That shows, again, that reliability, adaptability, and willingness to see things as they change. So keep track of your career in that sense. Make sure there's not too much shift. But definitely you want to emphasize those skills, and the workplace needs you. And we all need employees that can solve problems and remain positive. It's very easy to get kind of locked down in negativity, and we don't want to facilitate that kind of work environment. So it's really important. So, and the other thing too is I recommend to everyone, this is really, really important. If you're out there and you're thinking about what courses could I take to enhance my skills, what micro credentials could I start looking at, I really recommend you start taking or look for some business writing courses, in the workplace. It's very important. So much of our work now is online, and we're communicating through email, and sometimes through those exchanges. That's the only impression people have of us, are the messages we send people. So I really recommend you look into finding some good online courses that talk about how to communicate effectively with people. And it's not just about grammar or spelling. All of that is important, but it's all about how do you put the reader, the emphasis on the reader, the spotlight on the reader, giving the reader what they need, leaving the reader with a good impression of you. And that is so essential, because when you send a message and it may be it's not as polite as it could be, or it's a little rushed, or there's the odd mistake in it, that's the only impression people have these days. And it's not like you can oftentimes run into people in a lunchroom and kind of make up for an email like that, say, hey, sorry, I rushed that email a little bit. There's not a chance to do that. We're constantly sending messages. So definitely, please look into something like that, because those courses cover a lot of things, like how to eliminate trigger words when you write. For example, I like your idea, but that's a strong thing, and it sends a negative message. So how can we kind of de-escalate our messaging? So I would say business writing in the workplace has taken a fundamental place in the spotlight in terms of the skills we have. So if you're a pretty good writer, or you're a fairly good writer, even if you're an experienced employee in the old way of doing things, it doesn't hurt to brush up on those skills, because you're going to need them. And the other piece is technology. Make sure you're active. Before the whole pandemic, your space on social media was not that, I wouldn't say that was that important. I mean, everybody was in the office. You went to an interview in the office, in the workplace, and they hired you because of the interaction they had with you. But now people are piecing together people they work with because they're not seeing them every day. So they're out there at their social media platforms. They are looking at your LinkedIn profile a little bit more carefully. They're looking at your activities. Who are you supporting? Who are you engaging with? What organizations are you following? There's a lot more, I would say, scrutiny on that social media piece, mainly because people are not getting the full you a lot of the times. So it's very important to maintain a strong active presence on social media, and again, keeping with that positivity in your postings, being supportive of others, highlighting your credentials, joining groups and sharing perspectives. I think it's really important. You have to really work on your online presence. It has to be there, and make sure your photographs are up to date, right? And things like that. So in this world of work, oftentimes, people are searching for you. They're wanting to get to know you. So make sure that your resume aligns with your experience that you're posting on LinkedIn, in terms of dates and how long you worked at certain organizations. Also, if you're in Alberta, I have found that Alberta has a big volunteering culture, and I think that before the pandemic, when people were kind of face to face, you could find a lot of opportunities to volunteer on weekends, on a couple evenings a week. But the thing is, that's shifted. But what I think employers are looking for are not people that kind of give up on this kind of sense of volunteerism in the community. They're looking for people that can do it now creatively. So it's important to still volunteer and be connected to the community. But when you put on your resume that you have a micro-credential in presentation software, all these different applications like Zoom, Teams, and there's a lot of them, Google Meet, so forth. I think it's really nice to see that you've created some volunteering opportunities for you online. And for example, you might have a micro-credential in customer relations. It would be nice if you were volunteering and maybe doing that kind of work. So when you put those experiences and when you put those micro-credentials there, it's nice to have also that volunteering piece. For example, let's say you have some micro-credentials you've picked up on Microsoft Excel, and you volunteer at newcomer service centers or the public library by offering some free workshops once a week to people that are struggling with those skills. So that shows that you're an incredible community support. You've got your micro-credentials, you're adaptive, you're online, you're helping others that are struggling with their online presence. So you're doing that. You're finding unique opportunities online to do different things. For example, let's say you were active in those speaker workshops, where people get up and give speech, Toastmasters. And let's say you were active. Well, find some online Toastmaster activities, so you could say, I think there was one I saw out of Winnipeg. It was an online version of Toastmasters, and I'm sure there are more. But, if you can show that you've moved in your resume and in your experience, that you've moved from what used to be face-to-face interactions for you to now enhancing your skill set to transition to that kind of virtual piece, and giving yourself to the community and developing those skills. If you can do those things, that shows you're adaptable, that shows you're able to pivot, and it shows you're reliable, and it shows that you have an independent spirit that is not afraid of change, not afraid to embrace new possibilities. And I'd like you to think about that. And, if you've got time at home, I would recommend journaling these times for yourself. They're unprecedented where we're at and the shift of change we're going through. If you were to really be reflective and kind of keep a daily journal of things that are changing and what you're doing to adapt to them specifically, that'll kind of give you an idea of how you're progressing and how you're handling things. And again, to people that are looking for management roles, it's challenging. It's always challenging to be a manager and to step up into a manager position. But if that is your goal, not just to be an individual contributor, but one day climb that ladder, these skills that we're talking about in the last few minutes are essential. And not only that, start taking those micro-credential leadership skills. There's a lot of them out there. I know that a lot of post-secondaries offer them now. And again, those micro-credentials are important. It's not just I took this workshop and so on such and such a platform. I've went to NATE or SATE and I've taken a 2-day course. I was tested on my ability and I met the objectives and I received the certificates. So that demonstrates you have those skills. Okay. An institute with an instructor who's a leadership expert has said you demonstrate those skills. Okay, so that means a lot. So if you're looking to work on your career and move ahead, start thinking about how you can build that portfolio for yourself. And a lot of people that, the old saying was, people leave managers, not organizations. And I think with a lot of people quitting, I feel for managers because oftentimes they're high performing employees and they get into a position and sometimes they don't get as much training to be a leader. But when they're thrown into all of what we've been involved with in the last 2 years, it's safe to say they may struggle at times. And I think we have to develop our own sense of resiliency, and we have to be a little bit more generous in terms of understanding the position others are in. And in the past, you might be able to have a lot of one-on-ones with managers, drop into their office, develop a good rapport. With some organizations online, it's not possible sometimes. Maybe you can schedule a Zoom session for 30 minutes one week, but it's different than dropping in to an office. It's different than just having those exchanges. So be gentle with your managers too. Try to be understanding. Because I'll tell you what one of the traps of management is, and it's not managers' faults. Oftentimes, when things are uncertain, managers tend to micromanage a bit. And they micromanage because maybe they don't have a lot of confidence in the direction things are going. So they're a little bit over everybody's shoulders and they're checking on things. But just be patient, it's not easy for them either. So for yourself, make sure that it doesn't hurt also to take these leadership courses so you can understand how people process things. Take a good micro-credential in change management. Find out how that works, how people adapt to change. This is an incredible piece for you to have. Change management, conflict management. Take these kind of micro-credentials. Business writing again. Please do that. Negotiating skills. There's always these kind of little courses, credentials you can take that really enhance your own understanding of how the workplace. There's great micro-credentials on emotional intelligence, how to manage your emotions and those of others, help them, and that would help you with your relationships with people. It helps you put things in perspective, right? So micro-credentialing, it's great for a resume, but it really is great for you to develop as a professional. And it instills in you an empathy for those around you that are struggling with this constant change we see in the workplace. So these are some of the things that I've observed that's happening. There are additional stresses in the workplace when it's constant change. We have different generations working side by side. And in the best of times, before the pandemic, there were always challenges with more senior employees and younger employees. And now with this technology and with all these restrictions and people working from home, those divides have become a little bit more enhanced, So, and that's another micro-credential you could take. Think about generations in the workplace as a micro-credential, understanding how different generations process things and how these events in the past 2 years have just shaken people differently, and so my advice to everyone in this new world of work is you have to be patient. You have to work on your own individual resilience. We can't expect people to come into our lives and coach us that thoroughly. We really have to look at some tools for ourselves. Think about micro-credentialing for yourself, and for the organization you're working for. It shows how flexible and how you can help them. Think about presenting yourself on your applications as someone that's reliable, agile, adaptable, dependable. Think about those things, and volunteer. Find creative ways to. So volunteering, you will not only give back to the community that deeply needs all the support it can get from everyone, but you're also enhancing your own skill set, and you're helping people through. And so if you can imagine, you're feeling challenged with all these changes and you're feeling a little overwhelmed. Think about people out in the community that are just trying to get started with their career at an entry level, and they're lacking computer skills. The idea of a Zoom just seems unfathomable to some people. Think about ways that you could turn your micro credentials into opportunities to volunteer and help them, help them see things. And so those are my key recommendations for people. The new world of work really requires a bit of a different framing, a different perspective, and a kind of refined skill set when it comes to empathy and emotional intelligence, and giving people room to grow around you. Even perhaps if you have a manager that is stressed out, don't run so quickly from the organization. Maybe work with that man. Just try to be as positive and proactive and bringing solutions as you can. So these are some of the tips that I have for you. And I guess right now, I think it's a good opportunity. Maybe I've spoken so fast here, throwing a lot of ideas, but I have a feeling these are great times ahead of us. And this work 2.0 is going to be a wonderful time. We just need to adjust our perspectives a bit. At this point, I think what I'd like to do is take on any questions that people might have. That helps me too. If you have questions, and we can have a good discussion and maybe come up with even more ideas.